I'm reviewing Tombstone Showdown by Mike Stotter, which was first published way back in 1991 by Black Horse Westerns. That's the Robert Dale imprint, Black Horse Western. Got a very soft spot for Black Horse Westerns myself, because after all I wrote 10 or so westerns myself for the imprint. So we're going to be looking at that today. I'm talking a little bit about that novel, which I really enjoyed over the weekend. But first, before the review, I just wanted to show you a little few books I picked up today from the wonderful Troutmark Books in Cardiff, the second-hand bookshop. And if you're ever in Cardiff, I would recommend visiting Troutmark Books. They're just inside the Castle Arcade, the castle entrance, opposite Cardiff Castle. As soon as you go in there on the right. I only picked up a couple of books there today. Quite pleased to add these to my collection. I had The Buckskin Line by Elmer Kelton. Never read this, and I've read a lot of Elmer Kelton. I do enjoy the author. Another one is Johnny D. Boggs' Return to Red River, which is a sequel to the original Red River novel, which actually became the Red River movie starring John Wayne and Montgomery Clift. Now, I've got this on my Kindle. I've got an ebook version of this, and I've read it once and really enjoyed it, but it's great to have the paperback in my collection. I also picked up 3 old Ellery Queen's mystery magazine. This is an April 1977 issue, a January 1977 issue, and a January 1975 issue. So I'm looking forward to reading through these. Ellery Queen is still published to this day, and I've got a lot of more modern ones, although I'd say modern ones, these are well over 10-year-old, because we used to have a Borders over here in the UK, and I used to buy the magazine then every time it came out for the year or so that Borders was trading over here. But I'm looking forward to going through these all the way back from 1975, and as I was flicking through them, I was surprised to see how much the world has changed, because right there in the centre page you've got a cigarette advertisement. Kent, the famous nicotine filter, deluxe length. If you have a taste for quality, you like the taste of Kent. And then there's Kent Menthol. So that just shows how much the world has changed in all this time. So that's 3 copies of the Ellery Queen, the Elmer Kelton book, and the Johnny D. Boggs book. I love westerns, so I'm looking forward to settling down and reading these, particularly the Elmer Kelton, the Buckskin Line, because this will be my first time reading this, but I will reread. So without further ado, very good condition as well. So anyway, without further ado, I'm just going to take a sip of my Island Park 10-year-old. So without further ado, let's go out west. Let's travel to Arizona. Let's travel to Tombstone for Mike Stotter's Tombstone Showdown. Today, as I said, we are talking about Tombstone Showdown, which is a 1991 novel by Mike Stotter. It was originally published by the Black Horse Western imprint. That was an imprint owned by Robert Dale Limited, which is sadly no longer with us. At one time, the Black Horse Western range were publishing 10 new westerns every single month. And when I started writing for them myself, because I wrote 10 novels for them, they were at that point publishing 8 new western novels every single month, year in, year out, which made them the biggest western publisher in the world. They produced far more western product at one period than any of the bigger American publishers. They were specialists in westerns. Now, the book were hardcover books, and they were aimed primarily at the library trade. They were written largely for the library trade. And as I say, I wrote several of these novels myself, and I knew that there were certain guidelines you had to follow, certain subjects that you couldn't feature, and profanity was very limited in the books, which sometimes can lead to some hilarious extracts in some of the books as writers struggle to find a way around profanity when profanity would have been needed for the story. I would liken the Black Horse Western range to the 1950s golden age of the westerns in Hollywood. I think they were very much based on that. But that's not to say they were old-fashioned. They weren't. And many of the Black Horse Western featured modern themes and so forth. Now, Mike Stotter's Tombstone Showdown is the first book in the Brandon and Slate series. Now, I believe there were 2 titles to feature Brandon and Slate, but I could be wrong. I've tried to do a little bit of research on Google before this review, but I couldn't come up with anything. So anyway, this was the first book in the Brandon and Slate series, and I very much enjoyed it. What I liked was the way it was structured. It was very quite clever. I'm drinking, by the way, still drinking the Island Park 10-year-old, which is a decent single malt. Now the book opens with the Leduc Raiders, an outlaw band, and there's a scene. This scene rather sets up what I thought was the way the book was going to go, because you've got one of the outlaws who's a bully, and he's challenging the Duke for the leadership of the Raiders, and he's also picking on a much smaller member of the outlaw band. So I thought this is the way it's going to go. You know, Leduc is going to be the protagonist of the book, and this bullying loudmouth cowboy is going to be the bad guy. But by the end of that chapter, the big mouth, bad-mouthing cowboy is dead. Leduc has outdrawn him. So that sort of thrown me a curveball, but it's then after that we meet the actual hero of the book, and that is Jim Brandon. Now, Jim Brandon, he's a gambler. He's in Tombstone. He's attacked after a very lucrative game of poker. He's attacked in his hotel room by a Chinese man who's looking to rob him. And there's quite an action-packed fight scene here, and it's very well described by the author. You know, you can hear the fists flow, you can sense the fists swing in and everything else. Anyway, Brandon eventually bests the Chinese man and kills him by tossing him out of the hotel window onto the street below. It is then that Brandon is arrested by a couple of deputies, and later he meets the sheriff. Now the sheriff is Sheriff Behan, who was an actual character in Tombstone. He was very much involved with the Earp vendetta during the period. So what Mike Stotter's done here, the author, is he's used a real historical character in the book. The Earps are mentioned as well in passing throughout the book, so it gives it an air of realism. Now, later on in the book, a woman is kidnapped by the Leduc Raiders, and Jim Brandon teams up with the character Reverend Joshua Slate. Slate is a wonderful character, an absolutely wonderful character. Now, I don't want to give too much away about the plot, but that's basically it. So these two guys team up, and they go after the Leduc Raiders in order to rescue the kidnapped woman. And it's a great story, you know, it's really well told. It's atmospheric. The author really does know how to bring the Old West to life, and I did very much enjoy this book. Now, it's available at the moment as an ebook, and I believe there's a print on demand version as well. It's currently out from Saber Books, and there's a Kindle edition, as I say, an ebook edition, and on Amazon Unlimited. If you pay for the Amazon Unlimited subscription, which is kind of like the Netflix for books, then you can get Tombstone Showdown for free. So that's a great reason to go out and grab hold of the book. As I say, it's a very well written, traditional type Western. It's violent in places, but the violence is never gratuitous. It's there for a reason, and it serves the story. I did laugh earlier on in the book at one of the similes. The author is describing how beautiful this certain woman is, and he says she has the bovine eyes. That kind of made me chuckle. Bovine eyes. There's also another thing, as I say, we were very limited in the type of language and profanity we could use within the book. So there is one certain scene in the book where a character's penis, his knob, his cock, his wanger is described as his Peter. That made me chuckle. But overall, this is a very, very good book. It's very well structured. It's very well written. After you've read the first chapter, you're immediately hooked, you know. Even though the first chapter throws that massive curveball at you, you think these are going to be the lead characters throughout the book, these are going to be the heroes of the books, it's going to be an outlaw story, but then you find that it's very different. And what I also liked about the book is that none of the characters are squeaky clean, none of them are one-dimensional, they're all really well realized. So that's Tombstone Showdown by Mike Stotter. If you want to get an old hardcover copy of when it was published with Black Horse Westerns, these very often turn up on eBay and places like that, or your library may still even have a copy. But as I say, you can get the ebook or the print-on-demand version at the moment. So that's Mike Stotter's Tombstone Showdown. Highly, highly recommended.